Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. Wow, the title of this video might be a little bit, shall we say, might throw some people off, might take some people aback, if you will. It's a little bit different than some of our usual titles. But I thought of making this after reading a recent article that I thought I might use in a rather, quite honestly, banal way, like I often do on this channel, and many people have commented on that in a negative fashion in the past. But I thought it was going to be kind of a more straightforward article, and I'd just be making a video about, certain business regulations maybe changing here in Thailand. After I read the headline in Bangkok Post, bangkokpost.com, article is titled, Sreta calls for an end to red tape. And I was like, oh, right. Then the byline is PM Sreta wants excessively cumbersome registration process addressed. Okay, neat. Quoting further, Prime Minister Sreta Thavisin on Tuesday ordered all ministries to undertake significant regulatory and legal reforms to facilitate the ease of doing business, aiming to complete the process this year. Now, when I first read that, I was like, yeah, we talked about this a few years back. They were talking seriously in a prior government about, cutting red tape, getting rid of red tape. Generally speaking, I am in favor of this, and I want to be clear on this. I very much am a pro-business kind of person. I do believe in non-excessive red tape. But as we'll get into in a little bit, there are certain restrictions that are sometimes warranted for various different reasons. That said, this seemed like a fairly straightforward article, and I was kind of on board with it at the beginning, and then I got into this, quoting further, the Premier instructed all ministries to review or amend regulations hindering business operations after receiving complaints from international entities, I'm saying that again, international entities, during his visit to the World Economic Forum, WEF 2024 in Davos, Switzerland. So now he goes to meet, by the way, people need to understand this. World Economic Forum is not like the UN. It's not like an ASEAN meeting where it's created by bilateral, multilateral treaties between sovereign states that then create their own body in which to have discussions. WEF is just some big meeting. It'd be like having a tailgate party or something, except it's bigger, it's richer, it's full of more rich people, and it's private. Let's be clear on this. This is a private group, or as they call themselves, public-private enterprises. They're the intersection of state and corporate power, to paraphrase Mussolini, okay? And they talk about all kinds of things like, you'll own nothing and be happy. You ever hear that before? Yeah, each according to it. I'm surprised they don't have each according to his ability, each according to his needs. It's kind of like this place is the island of misfit political ideologies, if you will. It's where all the totalitarians go, in my mind, to discuss totalitarian stuff with each other. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic here. Look at the last 3 years. Look at what we've been through. These people were the tip of the spear of all of that. The notion that we need some kind of great reset. All of this stuff having to do with digital money. All of this stuff having to do with you'll own nothing in the future. Everything will be rented. So therefore, you'll just be enserfed. I hesitate to call it enslaved because that you can see a little bit better. This is a little bit more opaque, a little bit more intangible. And meanwhile, whenever, I like to consider myself a student of Thai history. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I definitely have the fervor of the converted. I'm a naturalized Thai. I am what I am. When has Thailand ever been at the behest of some opaque bunch of foreigners telling us how we need to set up our regulatory structure here in Thailand? Now, I know that there are foreigners out there, and I get it on many levels, but on other levels, I don't get it. And even when I was a foreigner here, I found Thailand's desire to protect their own labor market and their own economy highly laudable. I think that is something Thailand ought to do. It worked for them in the past, and I think it will continue to work for them in the future. Now, I understand technological exchanges, foreign direct investment does not come without a bit of compromise. But to upend our entire system of protecting our own not personal, but our own national labor force. Why are we letting foreign nationals dictate policy on that topic in any way, shape, or form? Doesn't make any sense to me. Quoting further, and I found this even more interesting, quote, they highlighted challenges for doing business in Thailand, citing complex regulations that hinder the registration of important drugs. This in turn affected the availability of critical medications such as cancer treatments, which have been registered and used by the public in European countries for many years. The registration process in Thailand was described as excessively cumbersome, despite these drugs meeting high global medical standards. What are high global medical standards, I might ask? Because it's due to in my opinion, there seems to be at least ample evidence of a correlation between the fact that the so-called, and I say so-called vaccine because prior to 2020, there was an entirely different definition of what a vaccine was, but let's leave that aside. Just in terms of testing protocols, all of the theretofore rules, regulations, methodologies, and protocols associated with testing thrown out the window. And then we get this treatment that rolls out with very little actual testing. And it looks to me like there's a correlation, if you go back, especially examining Sweden's numbers throughout the whole thing, and then on top of that, looking at excess mortalities before and after the rollout of this, again, theretofore largely untested, let's call it medical protocol. Again, look at it. See it for what it is. I'm not making conclusions. Go out and do your own research. But long story short, I've got real issues with the WEF, a group of oligarchs whose policies arguably got us into the mess we're globally in at this moment, telling Thailand that, oh yeah, you need to roll back all your own regulations and protections on your own labor force, your own business environment, your own economy, and then on top of that, we need to make it, quote unquote, less excessively cumbersome for us to get our medications onto your market. You know, my personal opinion is I think the Thai FDA is doing fine. If you get into this historically, the free trade agreement between the United States and Thailand fell apart on these points as well. And there's a reason for it, because Thailand takes public health and medical protocols seriously. They always have. It's one of the things I love about living here. The medical infrastructure is great. It's highly regulated, but it's still free market. But they also understand that, hey, we're talking about people's lives, okay? Could one of the reasons for the excessively cumbersome regulatory structure be that perhaps people die from these, quote, what do they call it here, cancer treatments? And the authorities here in Thailand want to be absolutely certain that when you do a cost-benefit analysis, there is something to be said for putting people onto these treatments, because that's exactly what their mandate is, to determine those things. You know, and I failed to see, again, was this a group of doctors? Was this a meeting of Doctors Without Borders? Was this a meeting, even though I have massive problems with the WHO, at least you can argue that, or you would presume there would be attendees who would be medical doctors. How many of the people that attended Davos, that attended the World Economic Forum, were medical practitioners, were medical professionals? I would love to know the numbers there. But meanwhile, again, a bunch of shadowy, opaque oligarchs are saying, hey, Thailand, you need to change your protocols and regulations associated with, medical research. Seems pretty nonsensical to me. Quoting further, this effort should cover both Thai and foreign business operators, ensuring smooth business operation without bureaucratic delays as occur now. Okay. Fair enough on the bureaucratic delays. Again, I'm not a big government guy, but at the same time, Klaus Schwab, the ostensible head of the World Economic Forum, although I don't know that hydras ever have one head, but leave that alone, he has specifically said they're part of the system, the people that are in favor of the system. We played this clip, and that libertarians, which little L libertarians are just people that believe in liberty, freedom. And libertarians are trying to thwart their effort to turn the whole world, I guess, into a big system, if you will. You know, Thailand has their own way of doing things, and quite honestly, one of the reasons I moved here is because they work. I don't really need a bunch of oligarchs half a world away who know nothing about this place and who, quite honestly, based on their past performances and their past actions, I think it's safe to say they care more about their own bottom line and their own power structure and basically themselves more than anybody else in the entire world. So why the heck the prime minister was even over there? Okay, I saw some comments on a prior video where we talked about this, where they said, well, he's trying to attract foreign direct investment. There's a lot of people there who are rich and powerful. Okay, I can understand the argument, okay? But don't be dragging this stuff back here and trying to implement something at the behest of a bunch of foreign, again, oligarchs. That's all you can call this. These are foreigners who are trying to tell people and the system here in Thailand what to do. And I truly question why this is even necessary. Again, cutting red tape for the sake of cutting red tape and trying to improve Thailand's overall, if you will, sort of, I don't know how you'd put it. Trying to improve its overall luster in terms of trying to attract foreign investment, and by cutting red tape to a certain extent, that could help. I understand that argument. I don't understand why we're thinking about upending our procedures related to medical certifications and why we're even changing anything because a group of people who were elected by no one, to the best of my knowledge, or the people that are there were not elected nor instructed by their governments or anyone to go to this meeting. They just go, and then they come back and tell us all, they come down off the mountain and tell us all how to live our lives. And quite honestly, it's resulted in disaster the past few years. Absolute disaster. Economic, social, even medical. It didn't even have any impact. All of this stuff that they all told us to do, and much of it emanated from the WEF. Again, I don't want to be talking about this particularly. I didn't talk about it very much for years because it was neither relevant nor pertinent. Well, now we've got people in the government now going over to these meetings. I'm going to talk about this stuff. It makes no sense to me. Thailand has a long history of doing its own thing, notwithstanding extremely high levels of pressure exerted on Thailand to do something different, and they held their own. Thailand held their own. Colonialism, the war periods, communism, Well, look, we got to hold our own again because the WEF seems to think that they can tell Thailand how it needs to operate legally, regulatorily, in terms of how we decide what medicines will be freely available or will be utilized on our own people. And quite honestly, I don't have any time for this. This is wrong. They have no business telling us what to do here, none at all.